We're still talking about people matter today, and I'm going to take it to a level that we really need to be challenged with. Each week we've talked about different things that we need to do as the church, shifts in attitude that need to happen, changes in our thoughts, in our pattern of thought. The first week we talked about worth, and we talked about how people have worth, people have value, and how we need to see them as God sees them. The second week we talked about being a compound and how we need to break that mentality and become a community, a family, of people that others can come and join and be a part of. I was doing a wedding yesterday, and one of the kids asked me, there's a sign right out front of the sanctuary doors, and they looked up and they said, "Why does it say welcome home?" And I said, because we want people to feel when they come into this building, when they come into this room, that it's home. It feels like home. It feels like a place where we can be ourselves. It feels like a place where we can come as we are, that we can allow ourselves to deal with what's going on together. I think we just blew a break, but that's okay. And then week 3, we talked about transformation over transaction. That means that we have to stop looking at details of our spiritual lives and the lives of others as in, well, this happened and this happened and this happened, where we can measure it. And we need to start looking at things from the point of view that transformation is slow. It's not measurable. It's not always noticed, but it's happening. It's definitely happening. So this morning, I want to jump to Luke chapter 10. And I've got it up on the screen there for you. You guys can go to it in your Bible or your app or whatever you guys are using this morning. It's a good parable to read anyhow. This is Jesus. And speaking with a lawyer. All right, this is in Luke 10:25. And this is, "Now a lawyer stood up and tested him, saying, 'Teacher, what must I do to inherit life?' And he said to him, 'What is written in the law? How do you read?' He answered, 'You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself.' And he said to him, 'You answered correctly. Do this and you will live.' Verse 29 says, 'But he, desiring to justify himself, said Jesus, 'And who is my neighbor?'" Who is my neighbor? This lawyer wants to know, he wants to find what the expectation is. He wants to find what the parameters are. He wants to know what you have to do and what you don't have to do. He wants to know what he's responsible for. Verse 30 says, Jesus answered, "A man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among thieves, who stopped him, or stripped him of his clothing and wounded him and departed, leaving him half dead. By chance a priest came down that way, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side." That's all. Verse 32. "So likewise a Levite, when he came to that place, looked at him and passed by on the other side." Two people just completely ignored it. Two people had no concern or regard. And I find it very frustrating, but at the same time revealing of the nature of the people of that day and the nature of the people of our day, that even a man of God, a priest, considered a man of God, ignored the need. But a Samaritan, keep in mind that culture was a very, very prejudiced culture, and Samaritans were looked down on by Jews. They were considered to be less than human. They were not cared about, and nobody saw compassion for them. But Jesus engaged them frequently. And I find it fitting that he says a Samaritan. But a Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was, and when he saw him, had compassion on him, and went to him and bound up his wounds, pouring in oil and wine. Then he set him on his donkey and brought him to an inn. Took care of him. The next day when he departed, he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper and said to him, "Take care of him. I'll repay you whatever else you spend when I return." Now, which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to him who fell among thieves. He said, the one who showed mercy on him. Then Jesus said to him, go and do likewise. And here's the truth, okay? And speaking specifically to this situation, the church is where the wounded come to find healing. The church is where the wounded come to find healing. Some of us in this room, we've been wounded by other churches. We've been insulted, and terrible things have happened to us. Some of us have been wounded, and we laid broken and devastated on the side of whatever road we're on, and someone that was spiritual, someone that we thought was going to be there for us, walked by on the other side. Some of us have been hurt by others. We've been affected by those people who said they cared, but they didn't care. Some of us have been affected by those who promised to be here for us, but weren't here for us. Others of us have been affected by those who actually came as perpetrators, came with the intent to harm, came with plans to cause you pain. So many of us in this room have experienced that, and we should know from our own experiences that others out there are in places where they are desperately in need of help. They need somebody to respond. They need somebody to step up. They are exhausted and laying on the ground. They are wounded and left for dead. They're half dead. And people are looking over and passing by. Looking over and passing by. One of the things that made this story come very clear to me, and it's no insult to anybody, it's just what happened. But if you guys remember, several weeks ago, my son fell at Coloneltown and busted his chin wide open. Several stitches were needed, and my wife was there with three of the kids. Grace was home with me, and he fell on that train thing that's over there. And he hit the ground, and he was screaming. Had his hand under his chin, and then moved his up. There was just, and I don't want to be gory, but there was blood everywhere. And there were baseball games going on. There were other people playing on the playground. And my son is bleeding, and my wife is, she yanked off his shirt and, put it right up against his chin. And nobody came over. Nobody came over to help. Nobody stepped in and said, how can I help? What can I do? Can I help with the other kids? I know the hospital is right over, right down the road. Is there anything I can do? And I hope that no one in this room is responsible for the same behavior. I hope that none of us can say, well, I'm not going to participate. So I'm just going to give you guys a couple points real quick. Number one, welcome the interruption. Welcome the interruption. 3 people stop by. First, a priest. He walks by, pretends he doesn't see it, and moves along. Second, a Levite. He ignores the man, not looking good for religious folks. And then finally, a Samaritan walks by. An enemy of the Jew fixes him up and makes sure the man is in good care. The man is in good care. He welcomes the interruption. He welcomes the opportunity. When he looks over and he glances at the need, he doesn't stop where he is. He recognizes that someone is in trouble, and he does something about it. And Dietrich Bonhoeffer, he said it this way: we must be ready to allow ourselves to be interrupted by God. God will be constantly crossing our paths and canceling our plans by sending us people with claims and petitions. We may pass them by, preoccupied with our more important tasks. It is a strange fact that Christians and even ministers frequently consider their work so important and urgent that they will allow nothing to disturb them. They think they are doing God's service in this, but actually they are disdaining God's crooked yet straight path. Understand the term crooked. It's not a negative thought here. It's indicating that God's path has many turns and curves and interruptions in different places that you find yourself in, different opportunities, different moments. And we've got to discover in our life that we are living in a world where there are many that have been attacked and are left half dead. There are people out there with great need. And if we just continue to walk about and do our thing, focused on our work, focused on whatever energy, focusing our energy on whatever else we need to accomplish, and ignore people in need, we are guilty of massive sin. Massive sin. Now, I understand that there's some situations that we've got to guard ourselves of, and those situations can be challenging to really understand when to engage and not to engage. But I tell you this, oftentimes just err on the engaging part. If you feel like it's time to be tough, and yeah, be tough. If you feel like it's time to show great love, show great love. But remember that you should always invest yourself. You should always participate, always get involved. It's not enough to come to church and then say, okay, welcome to my church, come on out, belong, be a part. Okay, that's not enough. We have got to step out on the ground, pound the pavement, wherever we are, in our workplace, in our home environment, in our in our goings to the store. And I know what it's like. I know that it's easy to avoid people and you just don't want to, but there are moments where that person is so desperately in need of someone to say something. I remember in youth ministry, prior to here, I was talking to someone, and they called. They called me, and it was about 9 o'clock at night, and they were sharing with me that they just felt like killing themselves. They were in a tough place. This young lady was in a tough place, and things were not going right for her. She was so aggravated with life and so broken. And I remember I was talking on my phone with her, and I grabbed the attention of my wife, and I covered the phone up, and I said, Kelly, you need to call the police, you need to call the paramedics, you need to send them to this girl's house. And, made sure Kelly had the address, and continued to talk to her. And, as she was talking on the phone, it was a knock on the door, she was mad. I mean, colorful array of language, and police came in, and she hung up on me. Okay? The police are there. You get a call about, 20, 25 minutes later, it's her sister, said that she's in the hospital, if I could come. Now, I thought for sure, when I walked into the hospital, she was going to want to strangle me. Okay? And I walked into the hospital, and I walked into the emergency room that she was in. The room she was in, an emergency room, and she looked at me and she said, "Thank you." She said, "Thank you." Now, what would I have done? What would have happened? Because I know that there's a lot of people in this world that can be dramatic, right? Things are hard. I want to die, and sometimes we don't take them seriously. But what would have happened if I would have ignored this young lady because she had a propensity for the exaggerated? She was always exaggerating and always making things worse than they were. What if I would have ignored that? How would the situation have played out? What if I didn't welcome the interruption? I can tell you so many times there are people that have come in contact with that have needed something, and we must welcome the interruption. And it's not just out there, church. You may need to welcome an interruption right here in the building, because there are people that come here that have great need. Another thought, don't judge HUD, okay? Don't judge HUD. If someone's upset and acting unusual, or that person has found themselves in a very bad place, it could be addiction of any kind. They have just lowered themselves to this whole new low, and it is awful where they're at. Or they have ruined their marriage, or they have destroyed their relationships with their kids, or any number of things. They have racked up bills. They could be just a narcissistic person that has just created problems for everyone. Don't judge HUD. That's hard. And it's not just hard for the Christian. Yes?
What are you saying? Don't judge what?
HUD. Oh, is it not working? Oh, don't judge hug. Don't judge, hug. Because it would be easy, it would be easy for us to walk into people's lives that are dealing with serious issues and say to them, look what you got yourself into. You made your bed, lie in it. Saying to those who are without home, the homeless, look what you did. It's your fault, no one else's. Look what you did. You could walk into prisons, people that you're ministering to in prisons, and say, look, you're the one who landed here. All right? Don't judge, hug. Don't be awful to people because they found themselves in bad places because of their own sinfulness. There is no... We can't forget the power of touch. With our children, with people. Now, I understand that, there's cautions in that, but even if it's just a touch on the hand or a hand on the shoulder, now be careful because not everybody's into that, so people are just like, don't touch me. But, if it's possible, hug. I'm a huggy person. I like to hug. I like to hug a lot. Okay, I'm sorry if it makes you feel uncomfortable. I've learned over the years to kind of, taper it off a little bit. But don't judge people. Don't look down on people. Don't do those things. Hug them. Care for them. Show them compassion by being invested. The first question which the priest and the Levite asked is, if I stop to help this man, what will happen to me? But the Samaritan reversed the question. If I do not stop and help this man, what will happen to him? As Martin Luther King Jr., what will happen to him? We have got to see ourselves in their place. We must see ourselves in their situation. We can choose to pray for people. We can choose to come up with solutions for those people. We can even choose to share things on social media, our opinions or our perspectives or our thoughts about what's going to help them. Okay? We've got all these different things that help us to respond by keeping them at an arm's distance. Very easy to do that. But when you see yourself in their condition, when you put yourself in their place, when you see yourself where they are, it changes your attitude about what is going on with them. It'll change the way you see them. Put yourself in their shoes. It's easy to observe. It is hard when you say, okay, I'm going to be where this person is. What is it like? What does it feel like to be there? What does it feel like to be abandoned by their family because of all the things they've done? What does it feel like to be broken and ashamed? What does it feel like to know that I don't have a dime to my name and I don't have anywhere to sleep? What does it feel like to be in that condition? Don't enable. Okay, church, don't enable. Don't enable people's behaviors. Don't enable people's patterns. Step in. Be involved. Let your heart break. The world is full of what seems like intractable problems. Often we let that paralyze us. We because of the news and because of all the things that we've seen, we've become desensitized. It doesn't affect us much anymore. We have been alerted so fast about things that are happening, and we have been shocked so many times that it's hard to shock us anymore. It's hard to be surprised. It's hard to be shocked by situations. It's hard to be shocked by what people are going through. But we've got to break down that wall. We've got to break down that ineffectual feeling towards those who are struggling. When we see awful things happen, it should devastate us. We should allow our hearts to be crushed for the needs of others. We should allow ourselves a heart to break. Look right at them. Let what they're going through saturate into your life. Let empathy come forward and allow that to create opportunity for you to use your talents to make a difference in their lives. Like the Good Samaritan, may we not be ashamed of touching wounds of those who suffer, but try to heal them with concrete acts of love. Real acts of love. It's a messy, messy decision. Getting involved in people's lives that are messed up will definitely affect you. It will definitely affect your heart. Last thought is to respond. Respond. Okay? So you went through all these things. I read the story of the Good Samaritan. You're feeling a little guilty, okay? I get it, Pastor. Okay. I got it. I'll do something. We'll see. Okay? I'm not being mean, church. Don't take it personal. I'm just being real. Respond. Compassion means you can see. Too many of us are blind. Anytime someone is hurting and speaks out, we need to show compassion. We need to stop where we are. We need to act. We need to be. We need to be present. Whatever the case may be, it may be moving furniture. It may be getting on your knees, okay, and speaking to someone who is literally laying on the ground in pain. It may be walking into places where you never thought you would be. No, I am not telling you to go into places where your life is at risk or where danger is serious, okay? Be wise, but engage. It's not enough to see, act. It's not enough to notice, respond. For the sake of their eternity, give them Jesus. Give them Jesus. On the surface, we made a lot of points about what the Good Samaritan speaks to us, but if we could think about it on a deeper level for just a minute, the man beaten and robbed and half dead is us. It's humanity, and we're laying on the ground, beaten by our own sin and the work of Satan. We don't have enough strength to combat these forces. If we're left to ourselves, we die. The priests and Levites, they ignore. As many of us ignore those who have great need. A lot of us in this room, we've been ignored. We've not experienced the love that we need. But the Good Samaritan, the hero, right? He comes in and heals the brokenness of this man. He gives this man a place on his own donkey. He gives this man money. He responds to this man with wine and anointing oil. He brings him to the inn and he provides for him spiritual nurture that he needs. I'd like to believe that our churches and our own homes, are the inn, the place where the broken find healing. I can be honest with you guys this morning. How was that man? I had people step into my life and shoulder my burden with me. It's not easy going through life without a father. It's not easy going through life. Few moments that he had with you were full of drugs that affected everything that he did. And that's just the tip of the surface. It's not easy. And there was a difference between those who just spoke to me and said, "You'll be fine," and those who stepped in. Men in the church that I was in that became a father figure for me. Men who said that they were going to be that individual that I could lean on, that I could find spiritual support from, that I could be encouraged with. My first pastor in my first ministry position, I'm so thankful for him because of the mentor that he became in my life and the investment that he made in me. I'll lie to you if I say that I was over it, that I was okay now. There are people that have come to me and have responded like Jesus is challenging us to do today. The wounded, the half-dead. People walk by and ignore. But they step in and engage. I've told you guys this before, but I'm telling you right now, just real honestly and transparently, I would be dead by my own hands if someone didn't step in. And there are folks here this morning that need to be challenged to step out, but there are folks here this morning, you're laying on the side of the road and you're half dead. You need a touch from God. You need God to do something for you. You need God to respond, and you need people. You need people to jump in. Perhaps you haven't been honest and you've been hiding, so they don't know you have a need. You've been ignored. It's possible. Some challenges on your bulletin today. I'm going to pray, and then I'm going to create some space. And this is what I want, okay? I don't want to be the only one up here praying for people. I don't. I know there's going to be people that are going to come that need prayer, but I don't want to be the only one up here praying for people. I want you who feel that you can to step in and pray. Father God, I pray right now that your truth would resonate in our heart. That just like the Good Samaritan stepped in and helped this man who was broken, as Jesus told this story, this parable, to show us what it means to love our neighbor as ourselves, that we would jump into it, that we would jump into the midst of whatever is going on and the people that we see affected. Most importantly, that we would share you with them. That we would show them the answer of all answers, the freedom that can come when we respond to you and your promise. And if there's people here today that need some prayer, that need some support, that need some affection and love from the family, we call Lancaster a son. They would come this way, let us pray for them, and let people surround them and support them. Challenge us. Amen.